So I want to start, of course, talking about Russia-Ukraine. We saw literally just hours before Davos starts this year, yet another war crime committed by the Russian government. Reaction to what we've seen in Dnipro and the way the war is proceeding right now?
Yeah, well, I think the last time we talked, I was quite concerned about war fatigue, hitting in with inflation, food price, energy price, and people just getting sick and tired of the war. But it is clear that Putin has a knack of changing that just when it counts. And unfortunately, he does it in a tragic, brutal way by committing war crimes against civilians as he did this time around. And as long as he continues this, I think the support of the West and the rest of the world is going to be steadfast. At
what point, we continue to see all sorts of military equipment that's being provided by the West that frankly, even several months ago, wouldn't have been countenanced. They'd say, no, it's too dangerous, it could lead to a greater escalation. What do you think is principally driving that at this point?
I think it's the wish that Ukraine wins this war, and by a victory I mean that we go back to the borders of 2014, so before the annexation of...
So you mean Crimea as well?
Exactly. I think that's kind of the only solution that we're looking at the moment. And in many ways, I wish Western leaders, of course it's easier for me to say now as an academic, but Western leaders should use the Mario Draghi phrase from the Euro crisis, whatever it takes, which basically means that you need to provide all equipment possible. Because at the end of the day, if Putin gets away with the nuclear threats or whatever he's doing, he's just going to continue to do more of the same.
Now, I understand the argument that everything but Crimea, these are the territories taken since February 24th. Crimea, of course, historically, and I don't mean like historically in the Soviet Union, I mean when Ukraine was independent, was an autonomous region. It was governed locally. It had its own parliament that flew a tricolor that looked a lot like Russia. Majority Russians on the ground there. Does that in any way change your view in how it should be handled, or do you think it actually needs to be taken militarily?
No, the way in which I think about it is international rules and norms. And of course, if you look at Ukrainian independence from 1991, that was when the borders were agreed.
Yes.
And if you look at all UN charters, if you look at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Russia signed that charter in 1992. It's about territorial integrity.
Yeah.
And sovereignty, and Russia has violated that. So if we believe in international law and international norms, it also means that Crimea is Ukrainian.
And so Crimea would be returned to Ukraine, but would still be fully autonomous and self-governing under that strategy?
Most probably that is the system that would then prevail.
So my question then is just how does one affect that? I understand that one would want that as an outcome that one would negotiate for. You're suggesting no, actually Ukraine needs to physically take that. Now also keep in mind, at the time that it was taken illegally, annexed illegally by Russia, there was a Russian base, there still is a Russian base in the port of Sevastopol, a very important one. Again, what does one do with those circumstances?
To be very frank, I think the only solution that we have here is a military solution, which basically means that Ukraine needs to push as far as it possibly can. And then, of course, I think at the end of the day, it also means regime change in Russia. Is this going to be easy? Is this going to be short term? The answer to both of those questions is no.